What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be installing the brand new calcium reactor from Geo's Reef, the Super Silent Extreme CR818. And if you guys saw yesterday's video, I went ahead and went through the whole process of putting this thing together. I went through all the new features that really make it the most silent and efficient calcium reactor here on the market. And yeah, so today we're going to go ahead and hopefully have enough media. Now I do have 2.5 containers of this ARM extra course, and hopefully that is enough to fill the main chamber. And I am going to be pulling the media out of the current reactor on the 300, and that should be enough, hopefully, to fill up the secondary chamber. Now, this process is going to be interesting because I don't think I could fit it in between the ATO and the sump, just because, just basically based on the size and the extra CO2 chamber there, as well as the bigger secondary chamber. I don't think I have enough room. So my plan at the moment, and this is why I waited till today to make this video, is I had to let the ATO run down as low as possible. So my plan is to actually remove this calcium reactor, slide the ATO over next to the sump, which I don't really prefer. I like it split up. It just kind of, it looks better. When it's next to it, it just kind of looks like one giant sump, which is, you know, it is what it is, but we're gonna have to deal with it because I wanna get this new calcium reactor underneath the sump, or underneath the tank next to the sump. So we're gonna slide over the ATO and hopefully have enough room to put the entire calcium reactor there to the left. Of course, the Trident and everything's gonna go with the ATO. And it actually works out because when I installed the low boys and the 40-gallon, plus if you guys remember we had the tub, I had to add this additional PVC, which as you can see kind of hangs over a little bit to get around the plumbing, and it sits just above the calcium reactor now. So if I have to make any kind of adjustments or cleaning or anything like that with the current one, I have to kind of tilt it a little bit to get the lid off. So I won't have to deal with that anymore, and the Trident can kind of bump up next to it and it should be good to go. So yeah, I definitely got to clean this media. Another reason why I really haven't done anything to this reactor is because I knew this one was coming. I could let the media kind of burn down a little bit within the main chamber. And yeah, so I'll take all this media out. You guys will see. We'll rinse it off with some RO water and hopefully have enough to fill up the secondary chamber. So with that said, let's go ahead and I'm going to start rinsing this stuff. Pretty simple. I'm not going to put it on video. I'm kind of lazy when it comes to rinsing this. I'm just going to fill it up with RODI, shake it around a little bit, and pour it out just to get any of the fine particles out of there. And we're going to start filling this thing up and connect it to the 300. All right, now that we rinsed the media, let's go ahead and fill this main chamber. We'll see if we have enough. If not, I'll go ahead and fill this up some more once we pull the media from the original calcium reactor. So let's go ahead and see what we got here. Take the lid off, set this aside. And we have a grate down here, kind of like a mesh that's going to prevent this from falling through. I don't know if you guys can see it. Hopefully you can. And, yeah. That was our half a container. Full container. All right, so we definitely don't have enough, but yeah, we'll have to pull from our original reactor for sure. It's crazy amount of media this thing holds. So yeah, we got about 3/4 of the way with 2.5 containers. It still looks really cool though. I love it. I'm definitely going to start trying to find the Reborn. I did get a link sent to me that they are selling it again, the bigger Reborn. I believe it's from Two Little Fishies. I used to use that stuff back when I first started the 300, had some great success with it. Now this stuff has grown the coral just fine. I am using calc, as you guys know, as well. But I'm going to try to find it and slowly get back into that again. So yeah, we have a whole secondary chamber to fill and 1/4 of a chamber here to fill. And yeah, we'll see if we have enough on the other reactor. So with that said, let's go to move over to the 300 and start taking that thing apart. Okay, real quick before I disconnect the reactor, I want to go through the process of how I got ready to do this. Now, in most instances, you could probably just disconnect the reactor, hook the new one up, and not have to worry about having any kind of fluctuations with your DKH. Now, with me, even with the 300 not being as full as it once was, we are growing it out, and I'm thankful that I'm able to do that again. But given that it's not as full, it's still using up quite a bit of calcium and alkalinity on a daily basis because we have the 40-gallon here, plus we have our low boys with a bunch of frags that are always healing, and that consumes a lot of alkalinity. So what I've done over the last several weeks, knowing that this new reactor was coming, is I slowly started transitioning over to primarily dosing Kalkwasser. Now, the reason why I did that is I just wanted to make sure, for whatever reason, with adding the new calcium reactor, I wanted to give it time to dial in, kind of see how it performed, and make slow adjustments on my alkalinity with it. That way, I didn't have any kind of fluctuations or dips or any kind of issues with my elk. So, again, over the last few weeks, I have slowly increased the pH in the main chamber. As you guys know, once you increase the pH, it's not going to dissolve as much media. And also, I went ahead and started increasing the amount dosed daily through the dose in the Vasmarine calc reactor. So I think I'm at about 12,000 milliliters a day with this, which is basically taking care of approximately 80% of the consumption of the tank. And I have increased the pH significantly on the reactor, but it's still helping out, again, about 20%. And yeah, so if we are going to have any kind of fluctuations with the new reactor, starting off with a higher pH and again bringing that down, seeing how the alkalinity adjusts, it won't be as drastic as if I just took it offline without having another method there kind of supporting the system while I'm trying to transition to the new reactor. So just food for thought. I think most people can get away with just kind of switching it, getting your pH dialed in, and just monitoring it closely. But for me, because it is my business to it's part of my business to sell coral, I don't want to take any risk of causing any damage or causing any unnecessary stress to the colony. So that's my thought process. That's what I've done. And yeah, so with that said, enough rambling for me. Let's get this thing off the system. Hey guys, welcome back. Progress update. As you can see, the ATO is in place. It doesn't look horrible. Again, I do prefer to have the gap there. But either way, I did put the reactor where I think it's going to be. It's just a little bit of a hangover, about an inch or so on the side, nothing too crazy. And the secondary chamber does fit pretty well right there in front. Now, the next thing we're going to do is clean the media from the main chamber, the secondary chamber, and fill up the rest of the main and the secondary here. After that, I do have to replace some lines. As you can see, the feed line for the reactor gets pretty dirty over time, just the way it is. It gets pretty nasty. So I went ahead and picked up some more of it from Home Depot. Geo sent me this red, white, and blue, and we'll use that to connect the reactors. And maybe I might have enough to run all the way over. So from the reactor all the way over here to where I dropped the fluid in, I might have enough there. If not, I did end up getting 25 feet of this clear stuff, so we can just use that if not. So yeah, let's go ahead and clean the media. I'm just going to rinse it out a few times, fill up those reactors, and then we'll get to plumbing everything. Okay, now that we have both of the reactors full, I think I had probably 3 or 4 handfuls left over. So yeah, this is a lot of media between 2.5 containers plus the main chamber of the original reactor, which was probably like 3/4 full, plus 2 secondary chambers. A lot of media, which is always good. So now that we have everything on here, the lids are tight, everything's sealed, we're going to go ahead and start connecting. Now the first thing I'm going to connect is the CO2, which is at the top here. Now there is no bubble counter. That's one thing that is different about this reactor compared to the previous version. There is no little bubble counter. So if you need a bubble counter, like if you're not using something like the carbon doser that I'm using, you can get regulators that have built-in bubble counters if you need to use one. Personally, I never pay attention to it. I just kind of let the reactor turn on and off based on the pH within the chamber through the apex, but that's just me. Maybe it's cheating, maybe it's not, but it's always worked for me. So the bubble counter really doesn't matter, but either way, we're going to go ahead and connect this. Now make sure you add a check valve. You can order one of these through Geo's Reef, and our cable is kind of long, so we're going to cut it here. Our tubing is kind of long, so I'm thinking I'm going to run it behind, possibly. Yep, possibly behind, maybe through here, maybe through here, I don't know. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it through here, because you know I'm going to change my mind later. So I'm going to put it through here and just keep it a little longer, just in case I change my mind. But either way, I am going to cut it still. So let's go ahead and use one of these little tube cutters. And maybe snip, all right. Then, of course, on the check valve, there's an arrow you got to follow here, right? So CO2 in. And I'm going to cut off another little piece to connect the CO2 check valve to the actual thing. So I'm going to do this first and get it in there. Good to go. And I'm thinking I'm going to have it kind of sit behind, possibly. So I'm just going to do a little extra again. All right. And connect this thing. It's nice and tight. Everything's looking good. And I'm probably just going to sneak it back. Yeah, that's perfect. All right, that works. Okay, problem solved. Now, there is a little bit of extra tubing just in case, but that stuff's not cheap, so maybe I'll switch this around in the future. Either way, I have a little extra on the CO2 regulator. So, next thing we're going to put in here is our pH probe. I'm going to pull out our plug. And, yep, just going to go down in, get this disconnected here, right down in, just like it was before. Good to go, and then just, that's the media. I'm going to lift it up off the media a little bit. Good to go, so that's in place. The next thing we're going to do is, this is actually the flow valve, the flow sensor, sorry, that we're going to have on the output, which will come out of here, so we'll connect this here. And I'm thinking I'm going to do the same thing, tuck it under here, tap it. There we go, that works. So we'll have that connect there, and it will go down and through the back, which you guys will see here in a second. And yeah, so that takes care of the pH probe, the CO2. Now let's do the connection between the reactors. All right, so let me grab some tubing here. Now the hard decision, what color to use? I think I'm going to use red, just because it's primarily, well, shit, they're still the same. All right, well, I guess we're going to use red for right now. So we have our in line, which is going to be clear, which you guys will see. We're going to run it from the pump to the in. So now we got to go from the output here to the bottom here. So I'm just going to use this red. All right, I'm going to come down. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm going to come down to here a little extra. I'm going to use our tube cutter. All right, down. Good to go. So that is our connection. So that's pretty much it. We're going to grab our inline here in a second to the top. This is going to be our out, which is going to go to the sump. Other than that, pretty easy to connect. And remember, we only have the one chamber. We're not going for a secondary chamber. So let's go ahead and get the pump connected. We'll talk about the speed and all that stuff that I plan on running here in just a second. Okay, so everything is connected. We have new lines from the sump to the reactor, through the chambers and back to the sump. So that should avoid any kind of clogging or issues from the previous setup. Now, I am going to be using my DC return pump. I'm just going to turn it on here in a second, but just understand the flow that's going to be coming out of this reactor is not what I'm going to end up having long term. Now, with this reactor, they do recommend a lower flow rate than what I had originally, and I will be dialing it down as low as I can with the DC function, and if I need to, I will add a ball valve on the inlet of the reactor to dial it down even more. If I do find that there's any kind of clogging issues in the future, like I had on the previous one, I will increase the flow, but the point is to have the lower flow so you have more saturation with the CO2, making it more efficient. So we're going to try it out, see how it works. If we need to, we'll go back to our old method, but for now, let's do what the reactor recommends and go from there. So let me go ahead and hit the flow or the power on the apex for the feed pump. Looks like it just kicked on. Yep, we have it here. And we'll dial it down in a little bit. Let's see what we got filling up wise. Ooh, it's filling up. Yep, it's filling up. Now, this is probably going to take a little bit because remember, we're going down all the way through, filling up everything, going into the CO2. So what I'll do is, when we get close to being done, I'll get the camera back on, but it is filling up. It's just going to take a few minutes. So we'll be back real quick. Okay, so it's been about 10 or 15 minutes since the reactor completely filled. It's purging bubbles. It's pretty much done. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the flow currently. And this is with the DC pump dialed all the way down. We're looking at 5.3 gallons per hour, which is still really high amount of flow for this reactor. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a ball valve. I'll order one real quick, and then I'll dial it down and hopefully get to the recommended flow rate for this reactor, and we can kind of see from there. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the mixing pump, and we'll see how loud it is. There's going to be some micro bubbles in there, so hopefully it's not too bad. And well, I don't hear anything yet. Let's go ahead and do that, and then let's go ahead and turn on our CO2. It's at the original pH of the previous reactor, so we're going to let that go, and let's go ahead and see how loud it is. So it is still, it's still purging air. You can see all that air there. And I'm going to go ahead and actually lower the bubble rate just a little bit, giving the reactor time to purge all that extra air, because as you can see, there's still a lot coming through. So I'm going to let this run for a little bit, get the pH down in the reactor, and then kind of see where the flow's at with everything running, with all the bubbles out of here. And yeah, just kind of check it out. But yeah, it's running. It's doing its thing. There's a lot of CO2 being dumped in there right now, so I'm going to go ahead and lower the bubble rate a little bit more, and we'll go from there. But yeah, it's up and running. As with anything, guys, it's kind of trial and error. It's on here, it's connected, there's no leaks. The CO2 tank is running, we're getting our pH down, and now it's just kind of sit back and wait and see how the reactor works. Again, the pH is elevated. I think we're at 6.8 is what I have it set for in the main chamber, so that's not really the optimal range for this media to dissolve, so I don't have to worry about any kind of major spikes in my alkalinity while we're dialing it in, getting the bubble right, and all that good stuff. But yeah, for now, looks good. Everything is running, and yeah, can't wait to see how it turns out. So stay tuned. I will have an update video for you guys. We're also going to do the test like we did with the original reactor, where we test the pH coming out of the main chamber and also the secondary chamber, because with this new method, we should get an elevated pH out of the secondary chamber, at least more than the previous. So with that, guys, hopefully you liked the video. Any questions, let me know. If you want to support the channel, head over to fishofhex.com, and I'll see you guys later. All right, peace.